half mortal, half god, all heroes of Olympus. You're listening to Ranking Rick Riordan, a podcast where we rank every book in the Percy Jackson Mythological Universe, aka the Riordanverse. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga.
And I'm Clara. And today we're discussing the Heroes of Olympus, Book 5, The Blood of Olympus.
This episode is brought to you by DoingOK Recording Studios. Use offer code DEATH to receive a free tour of the studio. DoingOK, music to die for. Now let's get into some housekeeping.
All right, so this episode finishes out our Heroes of Olympus coverage. Up next, it's the Kane Chronicles.
So you haven't read any of it, right?
Nope,
Olga?
only heard you vaguely talk about it.
Yeah, I've read all three. Well, I read 2 3/4. I didn't actually finish the third one because I didn't want to. I was like, I'll come back to this. And Clara, you read the first one, right?
I read the first one. I'm so sure I finished it, but it was like I was reading this in my senior year of college, and so I just don't. My brain is muddled for that for so many reasons.
Yeah. So basically, we felt like, I mean, chronologically-ish, it makes sense to do Kane Chronicles now.
In terms of publishing history.
Yeah, and also, it does take place before Trials of Apollo in the actual chronology of the world.
I'm excited to take a little bit of a breather from these stories to come back into Trials of Apollo feeling reinvigorated.
Yeah.
All right, so we're doing things a little differently again this podcast. I know last week, we didn't do a recap, and we're not doing a recap again this time. I did a bit of an outline to sort of guide our topic and make sure we hit on everything. But we have so much to talk about, and I didn't want to bog us down with reading every single thing. I think we will probably go back to recaps for the Kane Chronicles because of the fact that it's a brand new world and a lot of rules and things we'll have to go over and stuff
that we want to reestablish with the outlines.
But let's get into it. Clara, thoughts on Blood of Olympus?
Dan, I'm kind of angry because I thought I wouldn't love this book, and I love this book so much, but I'm also sort of glad that you had lowered my expectations of it because I love it so much.
All right, I'm really glad because we're going to have a discussion.
So relieved you feel that way, Clara, because...
We do not.
Yeah. I, meanwhile, was going to say that I was irritated with Dan for...
Everybody's mad at me for different reasons.
For being something about this book, I don't like it. And at first, for a long time, I was reading it being am I just letting Dan's poisonous thoughts affect my enjoyment? And the truth is, something about it bugged me. And I think there are actually two somethings. One is the lack of Percy and Annabeth as point of view characters. I think that severely hampered my enjoyment of at least, having one of them. I mean, this is... They're two of the heroes of Olympus, and we've been with them since the Percy Jackson pentology as well. And to I don't know, as much as House of Hades was a success, given the fact that they did still carry trauma from that into this book, I felt like I wanted just a little bit more of their thoughts, of their minds. I think they deserved a perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just want to add on to that and just say that, to me, I mean, I'm not going to say, I enjoy the Nico and Reyna stuff in this quite a bit, but I just feel like it was a weird choice to bring in these two characters that, yes, have history, but this is the end of a 10-book story, basically. And, yes, Percy and Annabeth are, going to show up in Trials of Apollo, but it's not their story anymore. And so, to me, concluding the 10-book thing without it focusing on them, especially when you have stuff like Kimopolia saying, "Oh, Percy, you haven't dealt with your fatal flaw yet."
I'm like, you totally. First of all, he did, and second of all, to not actually be in his head as he faces that choice with So, I mean, I know I'm being me. I'm coming off really negative. I did not dislike this book. I just didn't love it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard after coming off of Mark of Athena and House of Hades, where I just felt so much intense emotion towards it. I felt just towards this book. So that's why I'm really happy that you loved it, Clara, because I can't I can't get that like true love with this conclusion.
Yeah. I mean, so I totally hear what you're saying about Percy and Annabeth, and I agree that maybe what I'll say is I don't understand why this is the last book of this series.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, the stuff that I loved about this book would have been like the beginning of the start of something new and beautiful with a new series, I guess. So like I finally really loved Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we all came around on that, yeah.
I think I texted you, Dan, like 10 minutes after we stopped podcasting in the last episode because I started reading him, and then I was like, oh, I love Jason, my boy Jason. So, yeah, love Jason. Where was he my whole life?
Yeah.
I just adore Nico so much more every time. I love Nico.
Yep.
Raina, I really love. So, like, I guess for me, I wasn't thinking of it so much as the final part of this series, but in retrospective, I guess, looking back on it now and probably talking through it with you guys, it is bizarre that Percy and Annabeth don't have a chapter, like, at all.
Yeah. To me, it came off like, and I don't blame him. Again, I really like the Raina and Nico stuff in this, but it came off like, almost like Rick was like, I'm getting bored. I want to try something new. And I'm like, okay, what you tried new was cool. Why are you doing it at the end of the...
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the thing. I said that there are two things that bug me, one being Annabeth and Percy. Yeah. The second is the pacing. And in a way, the pacing isn't actually just a problem limited to this book. It's a problem of the pentology because Gia, this is a big complaint that you have, Dan. Yeah. Gia is in existence, is awake for like what, 40 not even 40 pages?
Like a chapter and a half.
Yeah. Like she's this big and she's like, in some ways, I'm like, I get it. She's so much of a threat that, like, you have to take care of her quickly because, like, she is so dangerous. But on the other hand, just the pacing, as much as I like the Jason development, I'm, like, kind of feeling like, where was this guy this whole time? And that being, Dan, you've kind of softened my thoughts on this of, like, no, this was being built up earlier. Yeah. But even so, I'm, like, the issues with his mom being dropped for, like, so many books. Like we were in Leo's head in Lost Hero when he was having that revelation. Like it's and I know these are nitpicks, but like the problem is I have so much intense love for Last Olympian. Like I think that book was so successful in its pacing. The way it tied things together, still brought in new characters, like paid off so much that my expectations, despite your warnings, Dan, were very high for this. Yeah. And we got really good character stuff. I love Calypso, love Leo. Yeah. Again, Jason, I got there and really loved him. Nico, Raina, like Piper, so good. Yep. And yet for me, the book just like didn't come together enough for me to love it. And I feel deprived of that love.
I wonder if Rick had focused differently, like what if he moved the Nico arc and like interaction with him and Jason to this book where like we care about Jason and maybe change a few other things about it as well. And, but we have that, so it's like setting things up for another series without like weirdly bleeding into the end of this one, you know, or we could have had more like Piper and Raina interactions.
Because that's really great at the end of the book.
Yeah.
I wish that there was a sixth book because the parts of this book that I like the most are just the normal, we're on a quest, we're doing stuff, not the last third. So like if the last third was a whole new book, like, and you know, they could have I feel like that last third could have been a full book the way that the Battle of Manhattan was a full book. But so we're going super negative. I want to talk about more things that I liked, because I mean, again, this is the first time I reread this book, and there's definitely stuff, you know, I let my like sourness of the bottom third sort of cloud my memory of some stuff, and I think the Piper and Annabeth chapter is like one of my favorite in the whole series. I agree. I really like Jason, and I really like the like priestly decision he makes to become Pontifex and everything
with Chemopolia.
That whole stuff. I like that Polybides comes back and is a big threat. I like that the Nike thing. And
the Nike thing
yeah,
was a lot of fun. That was an example of a the successful fight scene.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And I really liked the whole thing with Asclepius, and there's a lot of good stuff here, and Raina, Raina's awesome.
Raina to me is the most successful part of this book.
Yeah, and friggin' Nico with Bryce Lawrence and all that stuff.
Oh.
So many good moments.
You must have been like giggling like crazy during that.
Nico just I won't. I'm gonna say because I could just be so thrilled with Jason, Nico, and Raina.
Yeah.
I wish they had their own book. Like, I wish those three, and like this kind of was, but it was also the finale of, as you're saying, like a 10-book series with like a weird 40-page end battle.
Yeah.
So like, pacing off, and what I enjoyed was Jason, Nico, Raina, and I loved that so much that nothing
else matters.
and everyone else too. So
right.
I don't know. I guess I'm feeling so like, that's just my mood today is very character focused.
Yeah.
But
that's
like,
great.
God.
No, I get it. I get it. I'm glad, because that means we can have a more balanced discussion.
Yeah.
All right. So the way I ordered these things, I'm going to start off by let's go into Jason in more detail and everything with the suitors and the mania and getting stabbed. That whole opening. Thoughts?
Okay. So can I read you the few sentences where I went from like, Jason is the worst of everything because he's not even the worst, to like, Jason is one of my favorite boys. Okay. This is page 31. This is when I texted Dan and Olga and I was like, never mind. My whole life has been a lie. Okay. His mother's unkept promise was at the core of who he was. He built his whole life around the irritation of her words, like the grain of sand at the center of a pearl. People lie. Promises are broken. That's why, as much as it chafed him, Jason followed rules. He kept his promises. He never wanted to abandon anyone the way he'd been abandoned and lied to. What? Where was this Jason?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. I'm with you completely. I'm like so excited to be reading this finally.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, this makes sense.
Yep.
Is it a little bit of a retcon? I don't know, but
it's not
and this is
a
the thing, and this is
retcon.
the thing where you like I went into feeling that way, and you definitely like pulled me back on that.
As someone who this time around knew this is where things were heading, there is seeds being planted throughout. You know, you do have him. You know, it's obviously Lost Hero is a weird one because he doesn't have a memory,
right?
But like. In Mark of Athena, you have him having a lot of conversations with Piper that do reveal a little bit about him and reveal about his feeling that he's failing everybody and that he's supposed to be doing more than he is, and he doesn't really know how to work with people. And then we build upon that in House of Hades, where he is like torn and doesn't know who he is, but he's really torn by his responsibility. Mm-hmm. And the responsibility, I think, is tied into this thing of not wanting to abandon people and but also realizing that that's the struggle, is he's between his feelings of responsibility and also wanting to just be who he is.
Yeah.
I think that definitely comes through in House of Hades. It's just that we don't really get the emotional part.
Yeah.
Like what is driving him? And yes, you could, I guess, always guess that it had to do with his mother, but they weren't talking about that. And I do think, you know, it would have been even more impactful to have the mania show up in this one if in previous books they talked about it more. Because the mania thing's awesome.
The mania thing was so cool. Like I felt his trauma, and I don't just mean the sword with like it. Yeah, this was a really great way to like start off the book, and also to have like Piper and Annabeth in the background also handling their own, and like they're also still like planting the seeds, or continuing to grow Piper as this like
sword fighter,
exactly, as this fighter, as this very independent, like I'm actually effective at this, and I like it, and I want it. You know, it's just such starting things off with a bang, and it really kicks off Jason's arc of like not being a Roman anymore in a really clever way because of the whole like die as a Roman thing.
Yep.
So
and just
not
the start of the mania thing. You know, it's also a good way of starting this book off on the darker, more adult tone, as we have later on, Reyna's dad mania, and we have these like embodiments of abuse and neglect and PTSD and all these other, like, there's definitely a lot of adult stuff going on in this book, which I really, really enjoy. That's part of also what I struggle with the last third, which is when I feel like, oh, then they pull me back and go, oh no, this is a kid's book, which it is, but like, I don't know.
I mean, when we have these really complex themes, I just realized, both the Praetors of Rome had mania like parents appear.
Huh.
That's something.
Yeah.
So
and Ares kind of is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's also talk about the big fight with Polybides and him, deciding to go from camp to camp and honor the gods, and his sort of discussion with Percy and all that stuff. Like I said, I like that Polybides comes back. I think Chemopolia was a nice addition, and Jason, taking some cues from Piper and sort of using emotion and words to smooth over this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think what also really hits with this decision from him is that it does tie back so specifically to The Last Olympian and the whole idea of we need to, actually honor everybody, and him sort of taking the torch that Percy lit, and that we also, reinforce that he didn't fully, succeed in the last book. And then again with Leo and him in this book, him sort of being like, okay, I'm going to make this my whole thing, which was never Percy.
Mm-hmm. Man, I'm the voice of negativity as usual, but especially in this podcast. But like, so on the theme of like Jason running with the thing that Percy initiated, it's almost, to me, it's kind of a twofold thing where I'm like really happy that it gives Jason a purpose. It really is like him coming together as being, he's their representative, he's their priest, like all of that is good. It's not something that Percy really set out to do. He just wanted like fairness for demigods, whereas Jason's like the fairness for the other gods. So that's really like definitely a good thing for Jason.
Yeah.
The problem is I feel like, again, this kind of tramples on Percy a bit. I just walked away from it feeling like, oh yeah, Percy, you suck. And again, it's just like, I don't know.
I don't think you're supposed to walk away with that feeling.
I know.
Combined with Calypso, like it's this sort of like 1-2 punch of like Percy says he will do. I mean, not like he really promised Calypso, like, but there's just this.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I like where it gets, which is that you can't, like, Percy does everything he can. And it doesn't take away from him that someone else contributes something as well to the same goal.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it's just hard in a kid's book with a sort of classic, like, even if it's a sort of more like Avengers type of situation, it's still like heroes do the thing. The thing gets done.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
For the record, I don't need Percy to be like perfect. I really like the fact that he does like arguably screw up with Calypso. The fact that he apologizes to Leo.
Yeah.
I really like. I love that interaction where Leo even is like, "Man, you're making it really hard for me to hate you right now." Like, you know, like, Percy is still the hero, but trying to say like Chemopolia's weird like prediction in that regard that doesn't go anywhere, and Percy not being able to like even have his own words of like, man, I used to save the day and I did this and now I'm not.
I mean, they did have him have a talk with Jason after that I thought was pretty legitimate about him saying like, I was basically letting this poison destroy me because I thought I deserved it.
That was really good.
Yeah.
But I wish we were in Percy's head. Like, and this is the thing where I'm harping on, but this is why I think this book suffers so much for me and why it's coming. Well, and it's his parallel with Jason in particular that demonstrates that.
Yeah, and I think that for you, I get it because also it's like your three favorite characters are Percy, Annabeth, and Frank.
Yeah.
Which are all the people who get like
stiffed.
Yeah, totally stiffed in this book. But
whoops.
And I also want to talk about the glasses thing, which I really liked, and I know it didn't work as well for Olga, the negative Nelly.
Well,
but so
I love them. What's the matter, Olga?
I don't like the thing where they're like, I don't have a problem with the idea of Jason needing glasses. Okay, I actually like the fact that, you know, his whole thing was like, oh, he's so perfect, he's the perfect hero, and he actually, like, physically does not have 20/20 vision. He isn't, like, perfect without the assistance of glasses. Like, that is great in theory.
Yeah.
I don't really love the fact that they introduce his nearsightedness in this arc.
In the same chapter that he gets the glasses.
Yeah, or I mean,
agree.
in the same perspective bundle.
All of the things that make Jason a person happen in this book instead of like, and we sprinkle a little Jason over here and a little over, like
my little like headcanon theory, which I wish they like were clearer about, because I really do believe this is part of it, is that his nearsightedness came from seeing Hera in Lost Hero.
That would be such a logical and interesting tying of things together.
Yeah, that seeing her godly form is actually what affected his vision. And if they had just dropped in like one little line about that, that would have been really great for me.
And that would have solved my problems, honestly. I wouldn't have been as annoyed with it, because they brought up in a different chapter him seeing Hera in her godly form and him like having headaches from that. Like, if you just added one more thing on top of that, that would have solved the like, oh yeah, now he needs glasses, and that's really cool.
Or they could have had, like, when they were climbing up the mountain in the first chapter, him being like trying to see the suitors and then him not being able to see them or something, and like Piper could, or just little things earlier on than literally the chapter of. I understand where you're coming from.
I mean, yeah, it's like, it's all of it though with Jason, right? It's like there could have been little hints, and it's not like it's a plot. It's not like it's a reversal or like, you know, some crazy rewriting of history. But it's just like you could have given us that sentence there and that sentence there, and I would have loved Jason this whole time.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean about why Last Olympian ties lots of threads together.
Yeah.
And Blood of Olympus introduces some threads or drops some, and that like hurting me.
Yeah. Shoot, Olga, you know, you're making me think.
I'm sorry.
No.
Like,
I love this book.
Yeah.
You're not going to change my mind on that.
Good.
But what I am starting to think is that when we get to the rankings, I want to think about Last Olympian again. So
good.
Well, so
that's actually my real motivation. Yeah, exactly. My agenda is to make Last Olympian like number 2.
Well, so I do want to talk more positively about the glasses thing, because I really do like the symbolic nature of, he is this Adonis. Part of what his whole struggle does have to do with the fact that everybody looks at him and has expectations for him. And that little imperfection of adding a physical change to go along with his emotional change that he already had, I think was such a good, like, he actually, this is his Frank becoming buff moment. But this is what he needed.
Yeah.
And so I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Physician's Cure quest. So we have, we talked about the Nike with Percy and Leo bonding stuff. I don't know if we want to hit on that more, but there's also the Chained God with Annabeth and Piper bonding, defeating that one giant. And Clara, thoughts on any of that?
I just really want to talk about the Chained God all day for the rest of this podcast.
Let's do it.
This was so good. This is something that I wish, because I hadn't read this book when it came out. Even at the point that I was at in like late college or whatever it was, I would have benefited from reading this chapter and from the message that it has.
Yep.
And the emphasis on, you can't think your way out of emotion. Sometimes, like, even a negative emotion can lead to positive things. Like, it's not something that you don't just fight against fear by trying to think your way out of it, or anger, like you have to go through that. It's like, it's mindfulness, right? But in the form of a like embodied heroic quest. So good in terms of like young adult fiction, like for message, and then also the character development that happens here between Annabeth and Piper. And I think we've said, like, this is one of the great relationships in this series, I think. And it is just, God, I love this. I loved this. I loved this.
And I love how it continues on, where we have moments where Piper's like, oh, Annabeth looks to me with respect and wants my opinion on things.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's such a good moment for Annabeth and such a good moment for Piper. And I know something I talked about with Olga before we recorded is Piper between this and House of Hades in some ways has similar stuff to what happened with Hazel in House of Hades, where it's like it is a lot about like growing your power and stuff. But to me, the reason Piper's works a lot better than Hazel's is because I do feel like it's character driven and that it's about her finding her power emotionally. You know, it's about her growing as a person and that being reflected in her abilities, as opposed to Hazel, which I feel like was much more like, I'm getting stronger here. And like, maybe I understand my dad a little bit better, but like,
I feel like here's the thing. Hazel had kind of two distinct arcs. One was her coming to terms with her trauma and everything that happened in Son of Neptune. And that to me was like a complete story. And then they gave her more stuff of her coming into physical power. I mean, and then in between you kind of had the Sammy stuff, but that to me was more like an interstitial. That wasn't really a full arc. That was just like, you know, a side story in a way. And so with Piper, I think that she actually is an example of someone who does have all of her stuff tied up and going beyond from where we started in Lost Hero. The fact is that Annabeth being the person that like introduced her to Camp Half-Blood, that was her like first friend and guide, and Piper looked up to her so much of like, man, she has it together. She knows, look at how smart and strong she is. She's still a bit like, clearly she still has vulnerability and emotion because she was looking for Percy and all of that. But Piper looked up to Annabeth so much. So the fact that we come full circle and now Annabeth is looking up to Piper and they are equals in each other's eyes. And that's like so incredible to Piper, who had these issues with confidence, who didn't think she could come further into her own and develop her strength in new ways. Like that to me is so, so good and so skillful.
Yeah.
And especially like, as you kind of say, Clara, like if I had this when I was younger, when you are a young adult, or like this is more meaningful. Like it really gives you kind of, a fictional role model, but these things are,
That's the point for these things.
Exactly. Like we look for those and we find relatability and aspiration. And I think Piper's a great character to aspire to. So is Annabeth, but we knew that already.
And I think so, like for me personally, to get like hyper personal here, like I am someone who, like Annabeth, like I will think my way out of problems. I want to think my way out of problems. And I'm really good at that. And there are times for that. And there are times when I can't do that. And when feelings is really, really important. And I struggle with that. And I struggle with the fear of that. And so also knowing that some people can be better at that than you are, and that you can look to them for help for that is also really good. So I'm really glad that there wasn't, I love that this is a like woman-driven arc, first of all, for both of these things. I like that emotions aren't treated as like ridiculous and hysterical, which like Rick probably wouldn't have done anyway, but just glad. I am just so glad that what we learn isn't that. And that's how Annabeth learned to become the perfect human being who had every skill ever. And she's just as comfortable saying that she's angry as she is like solving a puzzle. Like, no, she looks to Piper to help her with this. I love that. This to me is like, I mean, Dan, like you were saying, like it's not just a supernatural addition or whatever. This is truly two characters getting much stronger by relying on each other. It's not like I have fire powers, I have water power. Like this is so good.
And so much of what you're saying, I very much understand why people ship the two of them. I've seen the fan art. And I do. There's definitely a lot there to draw on if you want to. But moving on, what else do we get? Oh yeah, I want to talk about the cornucopia real quick. Because we actually kind of skipped over this in Mark of Athena, but I know that the cornucopia is something that people criticize because it is sort of symbolically connected to Thanksgiving, and giving that to the Native American character, not awesome, given all of the connotations of Native Americans and Thanksgiving. My assumption, and I don't know that he necessarily succeeded in this, is that he wanted it to be like her sort of like reclaiming one of those symbols. But I also think that it's telling that he had her give it up, because I think he realized he screwed up.
Yeah.
And that's basically all I wanted to hit on. I don't know if you guys have anything else. I mean, there's also, I just want to throw out again the feather in her hair. This book. There's little things that.
The feather seems like it bothers many more people.
Mm-hmm.
It seems more problematic, and it seems very deliberate by Rick.
Yeah.
In a way that the cornucopia. I don't really.
That might have been just him not thinking.
Like it could have been in theory. Like, I don't know. It seems like you would think of. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
again, I think the hair thing in his head was, I'm going to have her like embrace her heritage.
Yeah.
But that comes back to like him not having sensitivity readers back then, because most people didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's destroyed. In a way, I also see it as like she used that. Yes, it was a tool to like distract and kind of fight, but the whole thing is now she's matured to a real, like she's a real fighter now. Like she has like a real weapon and like really knows how to use it, as opposed to like the cornucopia that just shoots out.
Which actually, since you brought that up, one of my biggest complaints with this book, which is I know, like, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much, but irritates the ever-living hell out of me.
Yep.
Annabeth and Piper lose their swords permanently.
Yeah.
For what reason? After all that buildup of Piper getting her sword fighting abilities, after, like, finally being like, Annabeth, she lost her knife, but she got this. They both had awesome, awesome weapons.
Yep.
And then they just, like, Piper loses hers off screen. Yep. Literally, Nico's like, I guess Piper lost her sword. What?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't.
If anyone should have lost his sword after all this time, Percy should have lost Riptide. Yeah. And I'm not saying I would have wanted that, but let's like stick the knife in Percy a little bit more. I know I love him, but like let's give him a little more trauma, just like a little poking at him. Like if anyone, why does he get the magic sword that keeps coming back to him? But Annabeth loses her Jameson Drakenbone sword that was like, look, he died for us, but like, here's the, and that's gone. And Piper's one chapter, the thing that she wins in her one chapter, or like set of three chapters in the previous book, that's gone. Like,
right after they show how awesome it is because it can freeze people. Yeah. I don't know.
They deserve better.
It's just so weird, given how the praise that well deserved that we just gave them for that chapter, the two of them. And all the work that they put, like, because we didn't even get to the fact of, like, when Piper is awesome in fighting all the giants and everything, again, using the sword. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
This is such a weird choice. But anyway, let's talk about the doctor's office. We talked about the glasses thing, but I want to say I really like the stuff with the insurance company and having that, the waiting room and battling that thing. To me, that's very classic Riordan and bringing back, like, we haven't done like the modernization thing in a while. Like, I feel like since we've been in like Rome and Greece, it's been like more traditionally these gods being their like traditional selves and stuff like that. Whereas I really like that in this book. Also, Nike has the whole like everybody gets a trophy thing. And I really enjoy when they add in these pieces of humor and these things that modernize them a lot.
I mean, that's the whole thing with Hygeia, that where she's just like, do you have HMO, PPO, like whatever, like all her insurance jokes, like that's gonna go over the head of the kids. But I was laughing like crazy at that part. Like, tell me about your deductible.
This was like my favorite scene in the Battle of Labyrinth, where like there's the standardized testing Sphinx.
Yep.
That was Sphinx, right?
Yep.
I'm such a sucker for this sort of thing. And totally classic Riordan. We hadn't, like, I noted that too. I was like, we haven't had this in a long time. I'm remembering how much I like these things.
Definitely.
It was a nice throwback.
And in the middle of all that, they have a sort of Tom Holland Spider-Man moment of them being like, yeah, we played this really old video game, Mario Kart.
It was. I really liked all of that. It felt like a nice homage.
Yes. So getting into sort of fighting the giants, that whole thing with the snake people and stuff, we get a lot in, talking with Zeus and all that stuff afterward. We get a lot of the setup for the future novels. We have a lot of setup for Apollo, to me, in a way that totally works and doesn't feel like it's hitting you over the head with, we're setting up the next series. Like it fits in what we're seeing. It fits in Zeus's terrible personality. And then we also get Annabeth mentioning her cousin in Boston, which is Magnus Case, setting up that series as well. But yeah, I talked a little bit about how much I loved Piper, the ending of that chapter where Annabeth and Percy are captured and Piper's the only one there, and her just kicking butt. Really love that stuff.
So cool.
Yeah.
So good. Can I say though, this is such a small note, but actually I guess maybe it's kind of major. I don't like that a main part of this series is fighting the people who you've already fought. I don't like, I think I didn't mind it as it was a sort of like, we know this is going to happen thing, but as it was happening, even though everything was really awesome and great and good, I just, there's something about fighting again the things you've already fought that was just a little frustrating.
You mean because they brought the giants back that we already defeated?
Back.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
It's a sort of, it didn't really bother me, but also was just a sort of, again, thinking about Last Olympian compared to this.
Yeah.
There's such a difference in we've built up this villain for so long, and you're going to see, and even though it's Kronos wasn't fighting for a huge amount of that book, but you have all the Titans coming for the first time. It's just Together and Hyperion and
to me it's an intimidation factor thing. To me the only intimidating giant was Polybides. So him coming back, or him being a foil to Percy or Jason or whatever, that was interesting.
Well, and
I was okay with
I think
that,
they did a good job because they set that he was following him throughout Tartarus last book. They actually built up Polybides in a way that I think worked okay.
But I don't need what's his name, Enceladus to come back. I definitely didn't need even the throwaway of Otis and Ephialtes coming back. That to me was, especially if you have the princess giant, you could have fleshed her out a bit more, made her more of a threat. To me, it's really more about the giants just being kind of throwaway.
Right, throwaway and twice.
Yeah. No, I think if you look at the series as a whole, the giants are one of the worst aspects of Heroes of Olympus. They just, generally speaking, are something to punch. It's so The other thing is, I feel like Gia just kind of throws them away, which I guess you could say it's part of her personality, but also she's supposed to actually care about the giants, unlike her other children.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, she wakes up and is like, okay, peace, I'm going over to Camp Half-Life.
Love you, kids. Mommy's going on a little trip to destroy some demigods.
No one cares about these giants. Maybe that's why, I don't know.
Any thoughts about Zeus and Jason's discussion?
No comment.
Let me think about the words I want to say for Zeus.
He's still staying at the bottom of our ranking.
What I like about this book is that at the same time that it starts offering us maybe one small moment of Zeus being like, oh, Jason, I would have, but...
Yeah.
Then, his interactions with Hera.
Yeah.
Or Juno. Hera.
It's Hera right now because they're in
This one
Athens.
is Hera, yeah. Where she looks afraid of him. And the demigods are, feeling sorry for her. I don't remember whose perspective it is. Probably Jason's.
It's
I don't
Jason's,
know.
Yeah.
And that he notes that and feels bad for her because he can see that she's afraid and, he hasn't seen her that way before. This is just, again, Zeus is at the bottom of our rankings for a reason. That jerk.
In some ways, I'm almost like, should he be at the bottom of our list? Not because I like him, but, I do think they do a good job of making me know who he is, if that makes any sense. He is a character. And I hate that character, but he is a character for sure. And also, Jason trying to push back and him and getting closer and closer to the Zeus just murking his own kid. Like, it's
after saying he's like so proud of him and wishes he didn't have to like dedicate him to Hera and like
You know what? It's actually, as we're saying this, it's yet again just like, I love Jason because you see how Jason could be like Zeus with, and I mean, I think like the chapters deal with this, but just having Jason be the pushback against your dad character here.
That's part of why I really like that he becomes like this priest role, because it's also sort of shedding in a lot of ways it would have made sense to destroy his sword, but like it's sort of him shedding the like Percy's the warrior, he's the fighter, the scary one who poisons people, and Jason is sort of like taking on this more like peacekeeper role. He's rejecting being the favorite / the true son of demigod son of the mother and father of Olympus. Like he you know, two incredibly important Olympians, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna advocate for all the people you stomp on. Like,
and it's like, it's kind of very Roman as an ideal. I mean, I don't know, that's probably a BS thing to say, because what is Roman? But the idea of actually like he is saying no to something like kingship, and instead saying, I want to serve all of the gods. This is about like religious practice and duty. This is duty. It's not being the king or being the leader. It's about, how do I serve? How do I make sure, you know, like that's really, that's great for his character. Also, because he's serving the gods, but he's also serving the demigods, because he doesn't want demigods to have to go through the things he's gone through. And that ties back to the fact that he cares about both camps. I think that they do a really nice job here.
I do agree.
Hey everybody, Editor Dan here, saying this is the end of part 1, simply because I ran out of time to edit any more of this podcast, but I wanted to make sure it got out this week. We'll be back with part 2 and maybe even a part 3, I'm not sure, but part 2 will definitely dive into more about Reyna and Nico and all that stuff, and then we have our rankings to do, and we're also going to do, now that we're done with the first 10 books, we're going to do our favorite moments, ranking our top 10 moments from the Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus series. So look forward to that next week. Thank you guys so much for listening, and may the gods be ever in your favor.